Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us today for the chat with our founder, Raul Rivera. Today we're going to talk about the for-profit arm, which is probably, Raul, one of the best strategies we have to help church planners. You do not want to miss this. Stay tuned. So Raul, if you could encourage church planners right now who are struggling financially, or they're saying, I really need to get some stability in my church plant, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
When I think about money and financial stability, I think about a for-profit arm. That's what I would do today in light of the way the world and the church thinks. A for-profit arm is the best way for a church to find its financial footing.
Well, Raul, thanks so much for joining us today on another talk with you about the state of the church and things you're seeing in the church. And I wanted to chat today about the for-profit arm, right? The for-profit arm being a strategy that we see over and over, people wanting to employ within their church plant. And I hear a lot of people say things like, a for-profit arm, I've never heard of it. Tell me a little bit more about it. Describe what a for-profit arm is and what should people be interested to know about it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. And most people, when they first hear about it, immediately go, wait a minute. Like they want to stop thinking and go, what is a for-profit arm? And, typically we refer to it as an arm because it's a part or an extension of what your ministry can do.
Right.
But it's also separated from your ministry for the protection of liability and for aspects of tax. And so what I heard from the Lord many years ago is that the church oftentimes depends only on what people give.
Sure, tithes and offerings only.
That tithes and offerings only, or they do certain fundraisers and things of that nature. And what I have discovered is that oftentimes giving goes up and down, sometimes based on just what the pastor preached on Sunday.
Totally.
And so there's a lot of volatility in depending on just giving. And many times the pastor has a vision in his heart that he wants to accomplish or she wants to accomplish. And oftentimes the vision is greater than the checkbook balance. And
I just heard a bunch of hallelujahs, people saying, that's me, right? I know I have more vision than money.
That's right. And I know the Lord's called me to do so. And what I believe God does is he always qualifies those that he calls.
Yeah.
And many of the ways he does it is by giving you the ideas. It's a lot easier, I would say, if you could just drop $1 million in my lap, but God wants to partner with us and say, here's how I'm going to show you to do it. And one of the ways is through a for-profit arm, in which the church itself isn't the one engaged in the activity, but the church creates and organizes a brand new organization.
That's why it's an arm, right?
That's right.
Yep.
It's for profit, but it's owned by the church, governed by the church according to the church's doctrines. And so this separate organization engages in business.
Right.
And for example, our very own home church right now, we have a recording studio where we actually record audio and video for profit, but it's separate from the church itself. We have employees and different people who work it, and it brings additional income to the church. And that income, when it's given to the church, once the organization itself reports it on its tax return and takes care of any tax liabilities, those profits are then given to the church. And when the church receives it, the church receives it tax-free because it's given to it as a dividend or as a donation, whichever or a combination thereof. And that money gets used by the church to continue to grow the vision of the church itself.
I've heard you share this hundreds of times in our conferences all around the U.S., and I used to tell you, this is the pen drop moment.
Yeah.
This is when they're taking notes and they hear this and they drop the pen and say, this is what I always thought this was possible.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing more and more pastors and church planners, they're very entrepreneurial, right? And they're looking around, like I love your pastors looking around the building saying between Sundays, this could be generating revenue for us.
That is correct.
You had mentioned a church-owned business, for-profit arm being a church-owned business. How does the church own the business?
Yeah. So we created by establishing a C corporation.
Okay.
It's set up as a corporation for profit. It becomes under the IRS as a C corporation.
It's taxed. It pays its own taxes.
It pays its own tax
directly there,
and it has its own shares.
Right.
So we typically would set up one with 100,000 shares. Now, how do you do that? When we incorporate it, we say we're going to have 100,000 shares. So we're taking our company, we're dividing it up to 100 51,000 equal pieces. The church immediately starts off owning 51% of that. So 51,000 shares, 49,000 shares are left outstanding, owned by the company in case the church wants to allow investors to come in and invest money, which is seed money that's tax-free and gets used for the business, or you leave it set aside for future use, such as investors. But you start off that way. And then let's say your business, for example, it will be a daycare center that's operated offsite at a different location. I've seen daycare centers at times produce $1 million a year. Those that have become very, very successful and have grown. You run it just like you would your own ministry in terms of, can this organization be run according to the church's doctrines? And the answer is yes. Yeah. Because it's that the Hobby Lobby ruling established that running a business in accordance to this is a closely held corporation in accordance to the doctrines of the owners fits squarely within the First Amendment. So we run it in the same way. We hire and fire according to principles that the church has established. But what's really, really good about it is that it can engage in any type of business that it wants. And that business can generate the income through that C corporation. It would file its own 1120 tax return. And then that tax return, once filed, will declare what is the actual profit that organization made. That profit can be given to the church as a dividend, or it can be given to the church as a donation. And when the church receives it, the church gets it tax-free.
So let me just mirror back, because Raul just said a lot here about this particular strategy. So the church starts another corporation. It's a for-profit arm.
That's right.
It's a for-profit corporation, a C Corp. We established shares from the very beginning. You had mentioned the church owning 51% of the shares. Usually that's handled by the church purchasing 51% of the shares at par value.
That's right.
And is that really the way the business gets seed money? Can the church be the initial investor, if you will, into the church into the business?
Yeah, you establish par value at whatever you want it to be whenever you set it up. So let's say you say the church has $50,000 to invest. How do we get this from a nonprofit into a for-profit? You do it by purchasing the shares. So if you're saying, we're going to start this new company, it's going to have 100,000 shares. The church takes $51,000 because we'll take par value at $1 a share. It can move it into the for-profit legally because it did it as an investment.
Yeah, that's right.
That will return dividends to the church. What's great, according to tax law, is that dividends paid out to a church are tax-free. So when the dividend, when the corporation declares a profit and it says we're going to be paying $1 a share dividends this month, it can give that money to the church, and when the church receives it, it is tax-free.
That is amazing. That's a strategy that over and over again, the pen drop moment, people saying, I don't want to just rely on tithes and offerings. I want to have a wisdom.
That's right.
I want to utilize my assets to generate wealth. And so what I hear you saying is there's a way for churches to not just be tithes and offerings dependent, but if they'll look around, there may be some business opportunities that they can invest into. And then they can receive income back through dividends.
That's right.
It's tax-free to the church. They've created jobs in the local area. They've met a need, and they have ongoing revenue because they utilize this strategy.
And that's right. And the type of business can be any legal business. I feel that when I look at churches, I look and often see there's a lot of resources present already in the church that could be converted into a for-profit arm. Churches oftentimes have recording equipment. Churches oftentimes have audio, video. They oftentimes have cleaning businesses. How many churches will spend thousands of dollars a year having their churches cleaned? Why not start a for-profit arm and the church be its first client? Now that becomes free cleaning for the church, and then that business attempts to get other cleaning services done. I know of one that they clean movie theaters, and they go to different places cleaning movie theaters, hotels, office businesses, and the church. So the church now gets a free account, doesn't cost anything to the church, but then the profits made by that for-profit arm can be distributed through a dividend to the church. So the sky is the limit on what type of business you can run through a for-profit arm.
This is a strategy we want you to continue to dream about. What could be and should be. Look around your local community. Look around the opportunities you have. See if God would give you an idea. If you have any questions about the for-profit arm, give us a call. We'd love to walk through what that process looks like and help you get set up. Well, thanks so much for opening the strategy to us. I hope people are encouraged. We appreciate it.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.